Welcome to Women and Wealth, Building Strong Foundations in recognition of International Women's Day and this year's theme, Give to Gain. We're bringing together women from finance, human resources, and real estate to have an honest and intentional conversation about financial confidence and long-term security. At Century 21 Grenada, we believe wealth is more than money. It's about knowledge, independence, and the choices we make to build stability in our lives. I'm joined by Lucille Mathew of Century 21, Karen Brown, Human Resources, and Judy McCutcheon, Consultant, who brings her expertise to finance and empowerment. Ladies, I'm very excited to have this conversation today with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome to the show. So I would first start with Judy because finance is very important to women. Tell me some of the challenges that you see in your area.
Thank you, Paula. That's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things I have seen is women giving up their financial power, thinking that they don't understand finance.
Right.
Finance isn't math. It really isn't. And so what that results, what some of the things that come out of giving up your power is financial abuse.
Right.
And financial abuse really is someone controlling your access to money so that they can control you.
Oh, wow.
So what some of that could look like, it could look like they are monitoring every dollar you spend, forbidding you from working, racking up debt in your name, even the things that you buy together, your money, their money, it's in their name, right? At its core, financial abuse is about power and not protection.
Wow, wow. And I know, I think sometimes we don't even recognize it. Like, sometimes you like shoes, so you buy a lot of shoes and you hide it in the car because, the husband sees the shoes now and he's asking you, is that new? And you're like, no. It's not new, right? So you feel a little bit guilty. And it's your money you're spending, so you shouldn't feel that guilty. And in real estate, where I see it too is sometimes women making decisions to purchase property with a partner. Sometimes they're not married to that partner and not understanding their legal rights or obligations and thinking, okay, it's okay for me to go into a mortgage with that person. And then legally, the property is not in their name. And then they figure that out at the end of the relationship. And because of that, they recognize, okay, I'm paying for a mortgage that I really don't have rights to a property. And then that could affect their financial freedom in the future because now they cannot build financial wealth because maybe their salary doesn't allow them to go buy another property and now have ownership, something that they own on their own. So I think, that is also from a real estate side, and I do see that, and women need to be aware and be more cognizant about making these financial decisions.
What women need to look for is patterns of control and not isolated incidents.
Right.
So you may ask yourself, just like you talk about the shoes, am I afraid of spending small amounts? Do I have access to our financial information? Do I know where the money goes?
Yes.
And can I support myself financially if needed?
Right.
Do I have my own credit profile?
Yes.
Because can you on your own go to the bank?
Yes.
To get money based on what you have?
Yeah.
Because at its, money represents power. And when access to money is controlled, your freedom is controlled.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny you talk about knowing about where the money is because a lot of women don't know what accounts their husband have, where they have the money. And I always not think just only for control, but also if you have a family and say something happened to that man today or tomorrow, your husband, your partner, and you have to know, okay, this account has this, where is that? And I think if you speak to anybody in the legal legal fraternity, they would tell you that a lot of the times the wives don't know where the husband has stocks, bonds, all of these things because they never paid attention to it.
That's right. And so the next thing that we as women must understand is that financial literacy is not an optional thing because it represents protection, it represents positioning, and it represents power, because money really is about freedom, it's about power.
Right. And, and as a woman, property ownership is important. It helps build wealth. It's really, a lot of people don't recognize real estate is one of the biggest purchases you'll make in your entire life, and understanding that is important. So with that, I would move over to Lucille.
Yes. It's a very interesting point that you make, because I was actually speaking to my mother, and she was telling me when she was coming up and looking at property purchases, it wasn't actually allowed without the understanding and signature of a male to get a mortgage. So I couldn't find the data for Grenada and the Caribbean, but certainly I looked up the statistics for the United States, and it said it wasn't until 1974 that a woman could go and get a mortgage for herself without the signature of a partner, husband, or father. So it said to me that whilst we are at the center of making decisions about budget, making the dollar stretch, making decisions about the family and the well-being of the family, it's only in possibly one generation ago we weren't in the decision-making field for the big purchases that will change the trajectory of life, So I found that was really interesting. I stand on what Judy says in terms of leadership, in terms of real estate purchase is more than just that. It's financial planning, it's generational wealth, it's literally the land below your feet. And that ownership of that land can allow you such tremendous growth. Literally, if you look at the land itself, we do grow in the land and we reap. You have the opportunity then to build, right? And in building, you could have that space of safety, power, investment for future generations, and also just that very empowering thing, a place to make memories. So I would say, as women, if you have a goal, I spend a lot of time educating women on the goal of reaching real estate purchases. So I would say, understand what is your goal for 1 year, for 5 years, and then break that down into bite size. How can you make those goals a reality? Right. It's said that, you can have a goal, but without a plan, it's really just a dream. So we want to get things in order. We don't want to wait until we're in the chair of the loan officer at the credit union or the bank. Yes. There are some things that we can do to get things in order beforehand. So most of us have smartphones, so right there we have our own scanning machine. So let's have some things in order, such as scan and digitize your wage slips, your proof of address, your documents, such as if you need to investigate and obtain life insurance. Let's not wait until you work with someone like ourselves to find the property. Get those things in order beforehand is what I would say is really can lead to true empowerment and help your decisions. It's such an honor to own property and if you think possibly a generation ago you didn't have those definitive decisions, let's make it happen.
And I'm seeing a lot of, in my space and our space, I'm seeing a lot of women owning property more than ever than before, I must say. I meet a lot of women internationally, and they will tell me, They have investment businesses where they buy properties and rent it out, and it is giving them that additional income, and so on, and helping them build wealth for their family. So I'm seeing more women are taking charge when it's coming to that, but I think we need to see more. And financial literacy is important.
Yes.
Education is important. Understanding, because a lot of people think buying real estate could be very challenging or difficult, or in their head this is a huge thing. But people like ourselves, as you say,
bite size.
we make it bite size.
We're here to break down the process.
It's not as daunting as people think it
Correct.
is. And as anything else, know the facts. Come to the professionals. We would guide you, right? Because we want to see that you succeed. Because your success is our success.
Absolutely.
Right?
We're not gatekeeping the information.
Yes.
The information is to be shared.
Correct, And I also think about the woman mindset too. A lot of women, especially I find in the Caribbean and in Grenada, the mindset still look up as the man as who has the ultimate say. And I know biblically we could talk about that, right? And respect that. But we also need to understand that we also have a place on the table. And when we ask questions, it's because we need to understand. I realize, and I know all of you here, I've worked with all of you, you're very detailed, right? And when you don't understand something, you say you don't understand and you ask questions. And sometimes that seems to be taken as, oh, women are difficult, right? And we're labeled, right? In many different ways. And that's where now I would come to Karen, because I think it's important that in your space, how women can advocate for themselves without being labeled as difficult.
Thank you so much, Paula. Great segue into that, because self-advocacy is so important, right? When you think about what my colleague has said about, how a generation ago you were not able to buy land. That has now changed because someone advocated for that change.
Yes.
So self-advocacy is so important. Advocating for not just yourself but for others is important. So in organizations, if the perception is that someone, a female, advocating for themselves is deemed as difficult, then that is something that the organization needs to manage. It's not for the individual to defend. It is for the organization to manage, and we have to look at policies, equitable pay policies that it's not gender based, but is that an equal pay policy. So if we don't have those things, then you would not have that guide to change the mindset and how people view someone advocating for themselves. And then it is that women need to not seek permission, right? In advocate, we don't need anyone to tell us it's okay to go and advocate for ourselves. And it's not just salary. We're talking about maternity leave. We're talking about, wellness opportunities within an organization. It's not just organizations, it's communities as well.
Right.
When you think about it, the pay gap within organizations now is at 20%. And for every 100 male employees that are promoted, only 87 are females are promoted. So you realize that there's still a gap that we have to close, and it will only be done, one, through having systematic changes within organizations, through policies, and having open discussions about it, and women speaking up. Because when we speak up in our homes, about the things we want to see change, then we were going to see that, that shift happening in our communities. So women have to speak up, and we talk about even what we're doing now is getting the information, but mentorship. As women, we need to collaborate and support each other. And I remember when I had a similar situation where I was not advocating for myself, right? But you are able to see. So it's not sometimes only someone coming to you, but you also see that someone is struggling, a female, you know, is struggling, and you can reach out. And I remember you sat and you're like, okay, let's talk about this. And I was very transparent, very honest, and say, okay, yes, I'm struggling in this area. And you were able to give some insights that helped me in navigating that discussion. And so
women champion women.
of course, and that's what we need to have more, is that we're not competing against each other. We have gone a certain way so that we can show the way. And so I think that, you know, at the end of the day is that when we in terms of women advocating for themselves, is if you're going in to have a conversation around salary, you need to know the facts. Don't go saying, I feel I deserve more salary. No, you need to go do an inventory of your skills, know the contribution that you are bringing to an organization, do your market research, and then you go and have the conversation. So we want to go based on facts, not fiction, but we definitely, wherever we are struggling, we need to reach out and, you know, have that conversation. We need to speak up. It's so important.
And it's funny you say, because as a woman in leadership, having to manage other women, or lead, if the right word, is also me recognizing the value you bring into the table. Yeah? And sometimes we don't want to recognize that, the value of each other. And it's important for me as a woman in leadership, because I understand that we are here to lift each other. Yes? And it's a journey. And we have to respect that. And if I lift you, you can lift her, and she can lift you. And we all benefit. Yes? So I think also as women, we need to recognize we need to be here for each other and support each other. Right?
It's like the rising tide. Lifts all the boat.
Right, right. So as we get to that, Judy, is there anything you would like to share? Any thoughts that before, as we about to close off, any thoughts that you would like to share?
Okay, so I would like women to, like I said earlier, understand that financial literacy is not optional. Gain some knowledge.
Right.
Go out and find, because it's there. It really is there. I think that we live in the best age where information is just available to us, right? Stop saying that I'm not good with finance. I'm not good with money. That's not true. That's not true at all. Give yourself a chance to do that. Don't say, well, I don't understand math. There is no math in money, really. You know,
There are apps though.
Right? And there are apps for that, right? So it really is about giving yourself the chance so that you can become independent and not dependent, right? Because so many of us are dependent, but we don't have to be, right? So let's just go out there, find the information that we need, ask questions. And it's okay if you don't know, because we all don't know everything. So sometimes we think, oh, I don't know, so let me remain quiet because I'm ashamed.
Yeah.
No, that's not it anymore. Ask as many questions as you need. Let them say whatever they have to say. But you ask the question so that you can get the knowledge that you need. And I want to say something on budgeting. Budgeting, stop looking at budget as a restriction.
Right.
So look at it, let's talk about a spending plan, if that makes you more comfortable. So let's say, you know, let me put my spending plan together. And when you're putting that spending plan together, ensure to put in it the shoes that you want, the new outfit that you want, the entertainment that you
The
want,
travel that
the
you
travel
want.
that you want.
Yes.
Include all of that in your budget, as well as the bills to pay and your investment,
That's
your
really,
savings.
really interesting, because it was through one of your coaching sessions that some of the fundamentals were shared with me that I still used, to this day. I remember you had said 50% to your needs, 30% to your wants, 20% to your emergency fund and your saving. And I think that's just, such a great principle to work with. And as you said, there's tools available to us as women, whether it's apps, whether it's through Google, or whether it's through coaching sessions and seminars that are offered by persons like yourself. We need to tap into those, because when we tap into those, we tap into our power.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I find
definitely.
sometimes, especially in real estate, I will have somebody go into a meeting to understand their qualifying amount for a mortgage, and I always encourage them, take a pen and paper. It may sound so silly, but take a pen and paper and make notes, so that when we're talking about the language of surveying or valuation, or what is your debt service ratio, you can be fully in on that conversation, because you've taken notes that you can reflect on and ask questions about.
And so, in the spirit of International Women's Day and the theme of Give to Gain, I would like to say that if we want women to gain wealth, we have to give them access. Access to information, access to capital, access to opportunities, and access to ownership. It ties right back to what you were just saying, Lucille.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would say it's a privilege for me to be in on the opportunities part. I'm here really to share information on how can you reach some of these goals, because I've done it and somebody had to advise me.
Yes.
So I'm ready and willing to pass that information on. I do, a lot of people don't realize in real estate we spend a lot of our time educating persons and helping them through the process.
Yes.
So the fun part is looking for the property, and some of the other parts that are absolutely essential and necessary are to get to that stage and put those things in order, put those steps in order. So I'm here to advise you of those. And
So what's some of the advice, as you say that you would give?
yes. So understand what are your incomings and outgoings.
Right.
And they say that the best way to increase your money at hand is to lower your spending.
Yes.
So if we're very mindful of what it is we are spending, because you can't adjust it if you don't know what you're spending on. What does the majority of your money go towards? And until you track that and find a way for you, if yours is a pen and paper way, is yours is an app. I know somebody who scans every receipt of everything and it falls into an app on their phone. So until to unlock the knowledge, we have to lay out what are our current habits, what are we doing. So if your goal is real estate ownership, maybe find out what are the 10 steps that you need to achieve that. I'm somebody you can jump on the phone with, and I will share, that with you.
But I do find sometimes that as women, we could be unrealistic based on our emotions. Right? And so it's also understanding, sometimes I see that our emotions want us to have the big house with the perfect car and the perfect, because with social media you see all of these things these days, and you look at it and you think, I can achieve that, and yes, you can.
Yes.
I believe anything you put your mind to, you can do it. I'm one of the people who I've manifested that and continue to, right? So I'm a living testimony. However, is the journey. How do you get there? And not recognizing that maybe where you are financially now, you may not get that big dream you have, but you can work towards it. And there are steps that you can take. And we can guide you through that. Because a lot of us think that our first purchase is our last purchase. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it continues.
And it's not the case.
It's not the case.
That could be the one to get you on the ladder.
Yes, yes.
Your first investment, that could be the one to generate money to get you further
To the next
along.
step.
Yes.
Excuse me.
But what we also have to remember is that how we are socialized, right? So we have timelines for everything.
That's true.
I must be
that's
married
true.
at this age. I must have a house at this age. I must have 10 children by this age. You know.
Yes,
so
yes,
when we get to that certain point that we have in our head, and we don't have the house, and we don't have the car, and we don't have the
children.
right, you know, all these emotions come in,
Yes,
and then
yes,
because of that, we put ourselves in positions where if we were to forget about a timeline.
So, and sometimes it's societal pressure.
Yes, but we now have to understand that at the end of the day, nobody out there on social media, nobody out there in society is going to be paying the debt that you're going to be putting yourself in.
Yes,
So
yes.
take it step by step by step, as you're saying, one by one, until you get to step 10,
Yes.
to where you want to be. And then you'll get there and you'll realize, oh, this is a journey, it's not a destination. I can keep going.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, to Judy's point, I think one of the things that when we start, getting overwhelmed with unrealistic expectations, right? We become disappointed and then we become stuck. So we now can't move because we feel like we've lost the opportunity.
Yes,
And
yes.
I remember, someone I listened said, today is you start the year, 365 days of opportunities, God's
That's
willing,
right,
right?
that's right.
Today you have, for however long you use, it could be 8, 12 hours, you have 12 hours of opportunities. And so I think to your mantra, be bold, right?
Yes.
So if you are sitting and you're thinking that the ship has sailed for you, it hasn't, you know? And there's another thought that I really love of a gentleman that said, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The next best time is now. So today is the best time for you to if this has touched you, you've listened to it and you're thinking, I now need to do some evaluation. Sit down and have that honest, conversation with yourself and with those persons that are connected to you, and just start chipping away at it. Little by little. What do you say? One toe at a time. That's how you eat an elephant. Right. So that's how you do it.
And as you have any tips you can share from the human side, capacity side?
Of course, we are all on our own path. We're not competing with anyone. We are not trying to be like anyone else. I will be honest, I tried it. There was a time, seriously, I tried this. I saw this young lady in the office and everybody was like, she's so fine, she's, and this was in my 20s, so forgive me, I've grown since then, right? And I wanted to be like her because she seemed to be getting ahead. And so I tried starting to talk like her, present myself. Of course, she was maybe about 5'7", so there was a problem. But I realized that it's so difficult to try and be someone else. It's much easier. We're created uniquely for a purpose, for a journey, and we first need to understand that. So from a human perspective, just own who you are.
Yes.
You are created in God's image, and you are enough. And whatever He has deposited in you, He is giving you what you need to get it done. And so as we are working in organizations, first, know your self-worth. Know who you are, know that you're created for purpose, that you have value, and that you don't need permission. Work on those things that you see as a gap, and if it is you realize that there are things that you ought to be getting in terms of equity, you think that there are things and it's not being envious, it is you valuing yourself and knowing what you're worth, and then deciding that I am going to go for those things that I know that I deserve, not entitled, which is two different things, right? So, and you go for it, and be bold, right?
Yes,
And say the other part that you normally say.
Be brave.
Be badass.
Exactly.
Believe.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think that, at the end of the day, we really have to realize that we are here to set a pathway for those behind us.
Yes.
And so don't just think of what you're doing for yourself. If it's only serving you,
Yes.
then that is not the right way to go. We want to serve and serve others. And so as you chart that path for yourself, understanding how that's charting a path for those who come behind.
Ladies, oh my God, this is like church.
Let's say amen.
For sure.
Thank you so much for sharing all the valuable information. Lucille, is there any final words on your
Yes,
part?
you had mentioned something about us being emotional beings, and we are, absolutely. And a lot of the time with our spending and our finances, any small win we want to celebrate, and sometimes we want to celebrate with retail therapy,
Yes.
or it all extends with, well, we must go away, we must do this. So it's a way to, I've over the years reframed how I look at a celebration. A celebration for me might be a beach walk and something that doesn't cost money. A celebration might be a way to try something new, try a new recipe, or I've recently taken up a new sport that I'm always talking about my exercise and well-being and tennis and pickleball. So there are some resources that we can tap into. So it's just reframing your mind. Celebration doesn't always mean expenditure and putting ourselves in expense and debt, but it can mean a way to healthily use our money in wise ways that it stretches further.
Nice.
And it goes towards the goals that we have in mind.
And give to gain.
Give to gain.
Give to gain,
Give to
right?
gain, yes.
And I mean, this conversation could continue, but we need to close off, and we're going to continue this conversation
Yes.
in another podcast. But I want to continue to encourage everyone sitting here to love, trust, and be a mentor for each other and for the women that we are examples to. Remember, you lead by example, right? And that's what we're doing in all of our fields. We're leading by example. And we are here to help and support each other in every way that we can. It's important. I think God gave all of us a gift here. And it's important that we help and use it for His will and His purpose.
Amen.
Right? And that's what we're doing today. And I would like to encourage all the women out there to continue to believe and trust in yourself. Continue to value who you are, right? You're valuable. As Karen said, God made you in His own image, right? And you have the power. You have the power. Give to gain. And thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.